So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna hold these up and I'm gonna be all M&M's made an album like the candy, and it'll be funny because same name.
Yeah, those are Skittles.
They are. Oh heck. Oh, hey y'all. How you doing? Um, something something mom spaghetti. Are those still funny? Probably not. He did one himself. I've never been a huge fan of Eminem or E&M as I assume he abbreviates his name. I see no reason to double check that. Like a lot of people my age, I do have songs of his that I like. Without Me is a classic, his verse on Forever is incredible, and I still go feral when Lose Yourself comes on. 8 Miles? In this economy? But as the years have gone on, M has struggled to stay relevant, largely delivering work that fans and critics have considered average at best, and that's being very generous to some of it. Last time he really made headlines was for calling Tyler the Creator the F-slur on Kamikaze, and that was less shocking than it was mildly annoying. Eminem had transitioned from being an angry, confrontational young voice in music to being your high school friend who never left town and still thinks calling things gay is hilarious. But weirdly, that's kind of what got me excited for this new album. Not because of the singles, but because of the title. Whoa. The death of Slim Shady clued me in that not only would this be a concept album, which means my little liberal arts degree ego would get stroked, but it would almost certainly feature Eminem reckoning with his place in the current hip-hop landscape. I was especially excited for this because the last time a rapper did a similar self-analysis, it resulted in one of my favorite albums, Kendrick Lamar's Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers. I finally said that right. This was another album from a rap legend, albeit one with more success, ratio-wise, who used the project as an opportunity to examine his past and whether he, as a person, had grown beyond it. And it paid off, resulting in a flawed, broken, and ultimately human portrait of one of our biggest stars. So I was hopeful that by going down the same path, Eminem might deliver a similarly revelatory kind of album. And having listened to it, the answer is kinda? But it doesn't quite work. So today I thought it might be neat to compare and contrast the two, and see where Kendrick went right that Eminem went wrong, and ask the question, could Eminem have saved this album?
I remember you was conflicted, bro. Misusing your influence?
Alright, this is the second day of filming this. Are the lights the same? Is the camera position the same? I have no way of knowing. Let's go. The most obvious point of comparison between these two albums, aside from their core theme, is their shock value. When Mr. Morale dropped in 2022, there was a large chunk of media chatter about the fact that on that album, Kendrick Lamar uses the F-slur repeatedly, and on a song about a trans family member. Not to mention that the biggest hit off that album is N95, a song whose chorus references taking off various filters that alter people's perceptions of the real world. In other words, seeming to make light of efforts to battle the COVID-19 pandemic. It was a big asterisk on the quality of the album. I remember listening to a Rolling Stone podcast where the host felt justifiably uncomfortable praising the album because of those qualities. That makes sense. It's 2024. Most people aren't going to let that slide. Eminem is clearly aware of this, and thus his album is primarily concerned with the idea that his past behaviors are going to catch up to him, and that cancel culture will destroy his career. And he manifests those fears through his Slim Shady character, having the character discuss his fear of the PC police and Gen Z, while simultaneously ripping into Little People, Christopher Reeves, and the deaf, and still finding time to use the R-slur, which again would come off as really disgusting and vile, except that we've heard it all before. The whole story of the album is supposed to be that Slim is trying to get Eminem canceled, but one, it's all too juvenile to be shocking. Little people are little. Gay people are gay. Truly shocking barbs from a master of satire. And two, it's just part of Eminem's brand at this point. It's what's to be expected. It's like owning a dog that regularly has explosive diarrhea. It's not pleasant when it happens, but it's not interesting either. By contrast, that kind of thing isn't Kendrick's brand. He's known for thoughtful cultural critiques that break down the Black experience in America. So when he says something homophobic or misogynist or controversial, it stands out. It has an impact. And it clues you in that he has a point. A point I wouldn't have used slurs to make, but a point nonetheless. For example, the point of Anti-Diaries is not that Kendrick's transphobic, but that he's having to do work to overcome a lifetime of ugly preconceptions about trans people.
So, some of you might have noticed that it gets dark outside for this part of the video, and you might be going, oh, well, hey, that's a continuity mistake. But, nope, it's entirely on purpose, and I will not be elaborating further. Thank you.
Journey of personal growth that he illustrates when, towards the end of the song, he questions why the church would kick out trans members who are adhering to Christian principles, but not heteronormative members who are not. Likewise, the point of N95 isn't that Kendrick is anti-vax, but that he's just as vulnerable to conspiracy theories, propaganda, and panic as anyone else. Later on, Kendrick discusses finding it funny when he saw an anti-vaxxer have to get the vaccine in order to get relief from COVID. Then says that when he himself contracted the virus, he started to question the conspiracy theories of anti-vax basketball player Kyrie Irving. In the end, neither of these songs are really about societal issues. They're about Kendrick demonstrating that he's just a guy, as uninformed and as in need of education as the rest of us. Kendrick is using these shocking moments to demonstrate how genuinely imperfect and flawed he is. He wants you to walk away from this album without him on a pedestal. But why is that? Well, that brings us to our second point. Both of these albums were made to comment on the reputations of their respective artists. In Kendrick's case, Mr. Morale was pretty clearly a response to people who, in the wake of landmark instances of police brutality, political violence, and general chaos, just wanted to see what his reaction to the whole thing was. I remember having more than one conversation about how, yeah, the world was going up in smoke, but it was all going to be worth it because on the next Kendrick album, it'd be so fun and cathartic to see him rage about everything that had gone on since his last album. And the thing is, I think Kendrick saw those conversations play out online, because the whole point of Mr. Morale is to tear down his own status as an icon. Savior is literally, textually, about the fact that yes, music can inspire you, but that doesn't mean it can save you. It and the people who make it aren't perfect. Father Time is about coping with his own parental trauma while trying not to pass it on to his children. And Rich Spirit demonstrates that he feels that his financial successes have made him out of touch, self-centered, and insecure. Meanwhile, Eminem seems to think that the public sees him as an enemy, as a danger to be dealt with as soon as possible. He has two separate songs on the album where he compares himself to the devil. He speculates that by staying mired in his old ways, he's painting a target on his back. The truth is that Eminem hasn't seemed dangerous for a long time. That was true when he first came on the scene, and it was revolutionary. It inspired a whole generation of rappers to be more in-your-face and intense and darkly humorous. The truth is that Eminem hasn't been dangerous in years. No one sees him as poisoning the youth anymore. He gets to collaborate with Ed Sheeran, he played the Super Bowl, he made a song for Shazam too. So when Eminem raps on this record about how evil everyone thinks he is, it comes off as disconnected, disingenuous, macho posturing. No one's scared of Eminem anymore. We just want to hear him say something that means something. And the thing is, he gets really, really close by the end of this album. The best things about both of these albums are their moments of emotional honesty. Mr. Morale is great because Kendrick spends the entire runtime being honest about how afraid he is, of the cycles of violence and abuse that he witnesses and falls into, of how those cycles influence him and other black celebrities as they become famous, how pop culture continues to become more and more of a hornet's nest, ultimately resulting in a breakdown of the individual and the community. And all of that honesty builds up to and pays off in the final track of the album, Mirror, and its chorus of "I choose me, I'm sorry," accepting and announcing that he's not going to be able to save the world, but there's a chance that he can be a good father and parent, and he's choosing that. It's an internal conversation that was obviously very important to him as both a fairly new father and as someone in the public spotlight. And ultimately, it makes Mr. Morale an album not about the public, but the personal. It's not the album his fans expected him to make, but the one he was compelled to make. And the final 5 songs on The Death of Slim Shady, once it moves past the concept of the album, have that flavor too. Guilty Conscience 2 shows that he regrets his past words and actions, and shows that even he thinks that they were juvenile. Although he's still using the words that he says he regrets using, I swear to God, guys. Temporary is a lovely and bittersweet note to his daughter in case he passes away, while on Somebody Save Me, M acknowledges his own failures as a father. Even on Bad One, which is largely just a boast rap, M proves that he is capable of putting down the edgelord jokes and delivering a solid flow where he talks about all the positives in his life and his accomplishments. It's Eminem putting aside everything else and just being honest about who he is in the moment and what he's feeling, and it's much stronger than the rest of the album. It's everything I dared to hope for from this project. Eminem is self-aware, sincere, insightful, sharp, vulnerable, and honest, thinking about the person he is and the effect he's had on the world, and what he wants his legacy to be in the future. And I think if Eminem wants to be relevant again, that needs to be his direction. My favorite Eminem song is Guts Over Fear, featuring Sia, but we don't have to talk about her. On that song, Eminem discusses his whole career arc, how people didn't like him when he started out and he was considered too soft, how people didn't like him afterwards when he rebranded as more violent and chaotic, how exhausting and frustrating it's been to try and make music that pleases people while also being artistically fulfilling and also trying to lead a personal life that he can be proud of, but saying that in the end, it's all been worth it if his fans can take away something positive and uplifting from his music. And in the end, that's when I think his music is at its best. Not Eminem's, not Slim Shady's, but Marshall Mathers, the real human being with real human things to say. I just hope we hear more from him in the future. Very hot coffee pot. I don't know. I gotta end this.